Patty Craig on News 6.
KDLH-TV.
Keeping business, jobs, and recreation. This is KBJR-TV, Superior Television for the Port Cities.
Good evening. NewsCenter 6 headlines and features for Wednesday, the 6th of August. Hubert takes issue with Ford's energy policy. Slight overrun on Arena Annex. Antone ready to go, according to Junkert. Roy Harnish fiddles around with the antique cars. NBC Nightly News producer visits hometown. And tonight's commentary, a report from the North.
KBJR-TV presents NewsCenter 6, brought to you by Northern City National Bank. This is the place to be. And by Minnesota Power and Light, the investor-owned People Company.
Good evening, everyone. In public appearances in Duluth last night and again today, Minnesota Senator Hubert Humphrey took issue with President Ford's energy policies.
Superior Television for the Port Cities.
KBJR presents NewsCenter 6 with Karen Barta, Jim Malmberg, Roger Berry, and meteorologist Chris Gentry. Sponsored by Superior Savings and Loan.
Good evening. Jim Malmberg is out of town. C.J. Butine is sitting in.
KBJR-TV 6 News presents Metro News 6. The news tonight is brought to you by St. Louis County Federal Savings and Loan.
Good evening. The nuclear disaster in the Soviet Union again tops this edition of Metro News 6. All day there was speculation that a meltdown had occurred in a second reactor at the Chernobyl complex.
KDLH-TV Duluth. Live from the broadcast center, this is the weekend edition of Channel 3 News. With Kurt Ludlow, Teresa Bryant, and Ray Higgins. Sponsored by Larson Chevrolet Oldsmobile, Superior, and by Super One Food Stores. The best food, the absolute lowest food prices.
Good evening, everyone. Still no word on the whereabouts of 3 Polish sailors who've asked immigration authorities for asylum in the United States.
KDLH-TV Duluth. Live from the broadcast center, this is the weekend edition of KDLH News. Brought to you by your local NorthLand Ford dealer.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. Ashland authorities have recovered the bodies of 2 snowmobilers who were drowned in the waters of icy Chequamegon Bay today.
The 2 men were described as being in their early 20s and from the St. Cloud area. They drowned when they drove their snowmobiles off a trail into unfrozen waters behind Ashland's power plant. The area is known as a hot pond and doesn't freeze because of hot waters.
KDLH-TV Duluth. Live from the broadcast center, this is the late edition of KDLH News. Brought to you by Superior Computer Products. Locally built computer systems, from home computers to complete computer networks.
Merry Christmas and thanks for joining us. While some people were celebrating...
KDLH-TV Duluth. News for the 90s. Live from the broadcast center, this is Evening Edition with Darren Danielson, Debbie Desmond, Teresa Bryant, and Marsh Nelson.
A Duluth National Guard unit is on alert tonight for possible duty in support of the U.S. Armed Forces Operation Desert Shield. Good evening and thanks for joining us.
We'll have a live report from the Army National Guard in just a moment. But first, a bomb scare in downtown Duluth today called authorities to action this morning.
Boarded this helicopter tonight in Panama City. Noriega is finally in U.S. custody. Good evening. By midnight tonight, Manuel Noriega should be arriving at Homestead Air Force Base in southern Florida.
Vatican officials say Noriega voluntarily gave himself over to U.S. forces.
At the White House tonight, President Bush applauded the efforts to bring Noriega to justice.
Good evening, I'm Michelle Lee. Coming up on News 6 at 6. Guilty on all charges. That's the jury's verdict on the trial of Lawrence Montanaro in Hibbing. Andy Skoogman is there, and we'll talk live with the prosecuting attorney. And we'll also tell you about a group of students who are making a large contribution to charity. Details next on News 6 at 6.
You're watching KBJR. The news starts now. News 6 with Michelle Lee, Carol Hall's weather, and Mike Hart with sports. Now, News 6 at 6.
Thanks for joining us. The jury returned this afternoon in Hibbing to find Lawrence ways to love the earth in an environmentally conscious way. Governor Arnie Carlson's budget has been blasted by northern Minnesota, but a growing movement of southern Minnesota farmers is upset as well.
Live from the Broadcast Center, this is KDLH This Morning.
Good morning and thanks for joining us. I'm Laura Cowan. A train derailment at Highway 35 in the Nemadji River is causing the evacuation of the area.
Live from the Broadcast Center, this is the 6 o'clock KDLH News with the entire KDLH News team.
This is where it all began at 3:30 this morning after a Burlington Northern train car derailed, spilling a mix of 15 chemicals into the Nemadji River just south of Superior. Thanks for joining us. The train derailment and chemical spill quickly sent a vapor cloud into the sky above the Twin Ports.
This is a KDLH news break.
The Duluth School District wants to set its financial records straight. I'm Kevin DiLorenzo.
And I'm Stacy Shivelet. Daniel, hear how administrators are explaining their budget and expenses to the public.
We'll tell you about an effort underway to clarify some misleading labels on weight loss products and programs.
And you'll meet a local long-distance operator turned hero. She saved the life of a woman hostage on the other end of the line.
Join us at 10 for KDLH News.
People you can count on, KDLH-TV.
Live from the Broadcast Center, this is the 10 o'clock KDLH News with the entire KDLH News team.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. Kevin is off tonight.
You're watching KBJR, your 24-hour news channel. News 6, live at 5. With Barbara Riles, Carol Hall's weather, and Mike Berkman with sports. The news starts now.
You're looking at the scene where it all started early this morning at 3:45. A toxic spill of the chemical benzene. Thousands were evacuated to area shelters. There were several injuries. At this hour, authorities still have a spill to clean up.
You're watching KBJR, your 24-hour news channel. News 6 at 6. With Michelle Lee, Carol Hall's weather, and Mike Berkman with sports. The news starts now.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Benzene gas from a train derailment spread fear and fumes across the Northland today.
Will the booms hold? We'll have a report. These stories and much more next on News 6 Nightside.
You're watching KBJR, your 24-hour news channel. News 6 Nightside. With Michelle Lee, Carol Hall's weather, and Tom Hansen with sports. The news starts now.
A toxic cloud engulfs Duluth and Superior, forcing people from their beds and the evacuation of tens of thousands, while seeping chemicals create an environmental crisis that has yet to be fully determined tonight. Good evening, I'm Michelle Lee. Cleanup crews will work through the night, hoping to keep the spill under control.
Okay, I lost that.
We interrupt this program to bring you the following News 6 special report.
Good morning. Authorities are evacuating parts of the city of Superior due to a toxic spill in the Nemadji River as a result of a train derailment overnight.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Michelle Lee.
I'm Duke Scorich. In the news tonight, a major Minnesota study could mean new jobs for the timber industry.
Environmentalists called for the study, worried the state was cutting too many trees. Results released today.
You're watching Channel 6. This is the Channel 6 6 o'clock news.
Good evening. For many Duluth National Guard troops, the battle against the flood of 97...
News Channel 3, working for you.
Thanks for joining us. The Twin Forts is preparing for a major disaster, but it's only a test. The U.S. Coast Guard and emergency area response teams have developed a response plan for any major discharge of oil or hazardous substances. Now it's time to test it out. The oil spill drill next month will test several months of preparation by several groups.
Good evening. As city leaders in Duluth try to displace Duluth's dirty bookstore, the Wabasha makes plans to move on its own.
While the new location is being kept a secret, Channel 6 News has obtained the new address.
Adam A. reports some business owners were shocked when we told them about their future neighbor.
Keeping you in touch with today's news.
Hibbing, Big Fork, and Ely.
This is the first week of our Concert on the Plaza series here at News 6. Coming up, meet the members of Duluth's Bon Appetit.
And the rain has stayed away from the show for now, but there is a chance for stormy weather. Paul's in next with the forecast.
A NorthLand student athlete makes a stunning, some say miraculous comeback from a sports injury.
The holiday is here and a mass exodus is underway, the most popular destination home for tomorrow's day of feasting.
Health and happiness. What more could you ask for? How about cheap gas prices?
Good evening. I'm Michelle Lee.
And I'm Mark Mallory. The Great American Escape is underway as people head in all directions bound for a traditional Thanksgiving holiday.
Keeping you in touch with today's news with Michelle Lee, Mark Mallory, meteorologist George Kessler, Tom Hansen Sports, and special reports from Barbara Riles. You're watching News 6 at 10.
Heavy snow buildup can be damaging to a building's roof, and if left alone long enough, it can even cause a roof to collapse.
KDLH News Channel 3. The news starts now.
Coming up on News Channel 3 at 6, is something lurking in the cold waters of Lake Superior? Hear from the experts.
Freezing rain and wintry conditions sting the Northland on the first day of April.
Plus, outdoor lovers brace for a price increase on their favorite pastimes. An icy return to winter-like weather has the Northland bracing for a dangerous night on the roads.
Good morning, I'm Edward Moody. Despite expected snow, it looks like the American Birkebeiner cross-country ski race is now in jeopardy of being canceled.
Skiers race in the Birkebeiner, plus the latest on our winter storm, and we'll show you how that storm is causing ice to tornadoes elsewhere. NewsCenter Express starts right now. Good evening, everybody. I'm Dan Hinger. Thanks for joining us tonight. Despite the lack of snow, the 34th American Birkebeiner went on today. The course had to be cut in half, though, and only the top 250 elite skiers were allowed to compete.
Good evening. The Wabasha Adult Bookstore in downtown Duluth was ordered shut down today. Authorities say the store is not in compliance with city ordinances. Kelly Lavoie joins us with more on this story. Kelly?
Pat, it's a move that shocked Wabasha bookstore owner James Gradishar.
No other news team gives you more news from Northwest Wisconsin. We are the Northland's News Center.
Good morning, I'm Laura Langamo. A male suspect is in the St. Louis County Jail awaiting formal charges following Tuesday morning's East Hillside stabbing. Police say they took both a woman and man into custody, but after an interview, the woman was released. The suspect allegedly demanded money before stabbing the victim in the back several times.
Live from the Northland's News Center, this is News Center at 10. Charges have been filed against the suspect involved in a murder in Duluth Central Hillside. There's a new face taking the helm of Duluth Coast Guard Station. And a $1 million luxury resort in the Twin Ports opened its doors tonight. Your news starts now. Good evening, I'm Barbara Riles. Michelle Lee is off tonight. The suspect in the drug-related murder of Stanley Booty has been charged. Spency Walker was charged today in St. Louis County Court with 2 counts of second-degree murder. From the Northland's News Center, this is News Center at 10 with Michelle Lee, George Kessler, Tom Hansen, and special IT reports from Barbara Riles. You're watching NBC6, and this is News Center at 10.
There was a bit of good news today on gasoline. The price of oil fell a few bucks, but the government's long-term forecast is also out today, and it projects further increases at the pump.
You're watching CBS 3. Northland's News Center. This is News Center Tonight.
The charge in Duluth's first murder case of the year is second-degree homicide. Bail for Spency Walker is $300,000. It's still nearly a year before the Polymet project is up and running, but officials toured the progress of the Hoyt Lakes facility today. And a child rapist faces the death penalty in Louisiana, even though the Supreme Court has ruled he can't be put to death. Good evening. The suspect in the drug-related murder of Stanley Booty has been charged. Spency Walker was charged today in St. Louis County Court with 2 counts of second-degree murder.
Covering the Twin Ports and the entire Northland. This is the KDLH-3 News at 6:30.
The Fond du Lac Reservation is buying up hundreds of acres of land in St. Louis County. Why and how the tribe is doing it. Plus, the Salvation Army needs your help. How you can help out the Northland organization in need. Plus, more snow to come. We'll have your winter weather forecast as it happens.
Hello, everyone. I'm Nick Minock. Thanks for joining us this evening. The first snowfall in some parts of the Northland left beautiful blankets of snow in many parts of northern Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan. What you need to know right now is that the high temperatures are turning this morning's snow into slush, which is causing some terrible driving conditions that are only going to get worse. Josh Shooter has been following this winter storm and how it impacts your commute for tonight's top story.
What began as a beautiful first snow for this year's Northland winter quickly took a turn.
This is the KDLH-3 News at 6:30.
Minnesota Republican leaders unveiled their plan on where the funding will come from to fix Minnesota's deteriorating roads and bridges. I'm Katie Anderson, and I'll have that story coming up.
As the Twin Ports shipping season begins, experts are expecting smooth sailing compared to last year. I'm Josh Shooter, and all the details coming up.
Are calling arson is now leaving, has now left this home uninhabitable. I'm Bryce Henry, and I'll have that story coming up.
Hello everyone, I'm Jennifer Welch. Thanks for joining us. A fire that neighbors say began with an explosion has caused extensive damage to a Duluth home. That's where we find Bryce Henry on the scene. First tonight at 6:30, and Bryce, do we know what caused this fire?
Well, Jen, at this time, we don't know what caused it, but police are saying that the fire was set intentionally, and they're now calling it arson.
KBJR-6 and Range 11 News today.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jennifer Austin.
And I'm meteorologist Adam Lorch.
The weather outside, obviously not good right now. Adam, you're prepared right now to go out in
This is my serious hat and my serious gloves for serious weather.
Good.
That's
well, I'm glad you got your serious hat on because you're going to need it.
Yep, certainly do. Let's take a look outside of the weather window.
You're watching the KBJR-6 and Range 11 News today with Jennifer Austin, meteorologist Adam Lorch, and special reports from Barbara Riles. This is the KBJR-6 and Range 11 News today.
The snow and wind are making outside the last place anyone will want to be this morning, but that is exactly where we find our Bryce Henry. He's live near the intersection of Mesaba Avenue and Central Entrance in Duluth. Bryce, what's it looking like?
You're watching the KBJR-6 and Range 11 News at noon.
Good afternoon. I'm Barbara Riles. Thanks for joining us. The Vice President of the United States, Joe Biden, is in Duluth at this hour, speaking to members of law enforcement and representatives of NorthLand domestic abuse intervention programs.
You're watching the KBJR-6 and Range 11 News at noon with Barbara Riles and meteorologist Adam Lorch.
President Obama outlined a plan today to enforce tougher gun laws. The new laws are in response to the Newtown, Connecticut school shootings.
You're watching the KBJR-6 and Range 11 News at 6 with Michelle Lee, Kevin Jacobson, Chief Meteorologist Adam Clark, Zach Snyder, and special reports from Barbara Riles.
Most know it takes a variety of habits to maintain a healthy body and a healthy mind.
As Bryce Henry tells us, a new business in Ashland is combining fitness habits with social ones to create an environment that shapes overall health.
Now at 10.
It's going to hurt a lot to little people.
The days are numbered for the Duluth Mail Processing Center and 70 of its workers. Plus, an overnight fire in Carleton County leaves 32 people displaced. And health officials investigate a second flu-related death in Minnesota.
You're watching the KBJR-6 and Range 11 News at 10.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Kevin Jacobson.
And I'm Michelle Lee. We begin with breaking news out of West Duluth tonight. Duluth police are investigating a fatal stabbing at the Super One store on Bristol Street. This incident happened just before 8 o'clock.
And this is video from the scene from several hours ago.
In touch with the Northland. This is the KBJR-6 and Range 11 News at 10.
The gloves are off.
I received a lot of hate mail in my mailbox, a lot, saying goodbye, the end, Dyke.
Former UMD coaches sue for discrimination, their allegations and the chancellor's reaction. Red Planet, as scientists claim proof of water on Mars, a flood of new questions about our celestial neighbor. And after months of debate, the Duluth City Council is set to make a decision about bike lanes downtown. Good evening, I'm Michelle Lee.
And I'm Edward Moody. It's another packed city council meeting in Duluth tonight as councilors take up the issue of installing protected bike lanes downtown.
Katie Anderson was at tonight's meeting. She joins us now from the newsroom with tonight's top story. And Katie, has a decision been made on where to put that bike lane?
Well, Michelle, actually not yet. As we speak, the council is still hearing from the public on the...
From CBS 3 Duluth, this is CBS 3 This Morning.
Kurdish forces are reportedly switching sides as Turkey ramps up its attacks against their forces. Plus, how Barron County has changed 1 year after the kidnapping of teenager Jamie Kloss. And thanks to the help of volunteers, the Bentleyville tree is up. The lights are far behind. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Leanne Valdez.
And I'm Austin Haskins. Thanks for joining us on this Monday, October 14th.
Yeah, October 14th. The days seem like they're just flying on by, getting closer and closer to Halloween.
Parts of the country, why the U.S. is calling it a sham election.
You're watching Live at 5 on Live Local CBS 3.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Kendall Jarbo. There's a new initiative to help fight child sexual abuse in the Northland.
From CBS 3 Duluth, this is the CBS 3 News at 6.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Kendall Jarbo. A Northland farm putting men with criminal history to work will now be able to produce more meat than ever before.
Tonight, on the eve of the impeachment vote, Duluth gathers to urge action from one of our local lawmakers.
And 1 year later, on the anniversary of a Superior landmark going up in flames, what firefighters say they've learned.
And later, cabin owners up the North Shore could soon have to reach further into their pockets as they are faced with potentially higher taxes.
From CBS 3 Duluth, this is the CBS 3 News at 10.
Good evening, I'm Kristen Baki.
And I'm Anthony Matt. Thanks for joining us. We're on the eve of a historic vote in the United States House tomorrow.
After weeks of back and forth, House Democrats have decided to move forward and hold a vote on the impeachment of President Donald Trump tomorrow.
From CBS 3 Duluth, this is the CBS 3 News at 10.
Welcome to the CBS 3 News at 10. We are taking a live look at Snowy Canal Park on this Tuesday evening. Right now, most roads across the region are still snow covered as we enter the tail end of our 2-day snow adventure. Good evening, I'm Rob Coles. Christian and Briggs are off tonight. Thanks for joining us. Tonight's snow totals were significantly less than yesterday.
From the KBJR-6 studios, you're watching KBJR-6 News Today. You're watching KBJR-6 News Today with Natalie Grant, Paul Brown, and weather with meteorologist Hunter McCullough on KBJR-6.
Well, a shiny new ship is now sailing the Great Lakes and...
Well, it's here, the first big snowstorm of the year.
And we're live in Hibbing where the snow continues to fall and the roads are getting slipperier.
Plus, the hidden history behind the Christmas City theme song.
From KBJR-6, your weather authority, this is KBJR-6 Today.
Good morning, I'm Michael Raimondi.
I'm Jennifer Austin. Snow is falling in parts of the Northland this morning and more is expected throughout the day.
You're watching KBJR-6 News Today with Cece Gaines, Ryan Half, and weather with meteorologist Adam Lorch on KBJR-6, your weather authority.
Welcome back to
Continuing to rain, cats and dogs again, and the lake just continues to rise. Right now, on new flooding frustrations. People on Pigeon Lake continue to deal with the effects of flooding. Plus, Wisconsin pardons issued. Governor Tony Evers hands out the state's first pardons in nearly a decade. And bear attacks in Duluth. Police are warning citizens to be bear aware after 2 dogs were attacked in the Duluth Heights neighborhood.
You're watching KBJR-6 News at noon on KBJR-6, your weather authority.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'm Ryan Half. CC Gaines has the afternoon off. For many years, residents living on Pigeon Lake in Wisconsin have struggled with high water and flooding, and members of the Bayfield Lake Group have attempted to get help from state and federal agencies, but with no success.
Right now at 5, new developments in the case of a Minneapolis daycare owner authorities say tried to hang a child left in her care. Plus, what went wrong, why it took so long to clear major roadways across the Iron Range following Friday's snow. And on this eve of Thanksgiving, what motorists need to know as they head out onto the highways for the long holiday weekend.
From KBJR-6, your weather authority, this is the KBJR-6 News at 5.
Good evening. I'm Michelle Lee.
And I'm Dan Wolf. Thanks for joining us. People all across the country are on the road tonight heading to their Thanksgiving destination.
Here now, a live look at our tower cam looking over downtown Duluth. The sun is setting and the rain and snow is starting to die down, which is very good news for motorists tonight.
You're watching the KBJR-6 News at 5 with Jesse Slater, Dan Wolf, and weather with Chief Meteorologist Adam Clark on KBJR-6, your weather authority.
President Trump is touting a...
Right now at 6, the DNR put down a bear they believe attacked 3 dogs in Duluth in the last week. Now advice to keep your home and pets safe from wildlife. Plus, a judge decided the future of a rundown Duluth landmark. What's next for Pastorette Terrace? And ahead of the November election, local candidates are facing off right now, who you can hear at a forum happening tonight.
From KBJR-6, your weather authority, this is the KBJR-6 News at 6.
Good evening, I'm Dan Wolf.
And I'm Bonnie Bowman. Thanks for joining us.
You're watching the KBJR-6 News at 5 with Briggs LaSavage, Dan Wolf, and weather with Chief Meteorologist Adam Lorch on KBJR-6.
Midterm elections 7.
You're watching the KBJR-6 News at 6 with Natalie Grant. Sports with Alexis Bass and weather with meteorologist Bo Fogel on KBJR-6, your weather authority.
Right now at 10, on the eve of the House impeachment vote, tensions rise across the country, the local people taking part in a national vigil. Plus, justice restored while the state is considering pardoning a crime that happened almost 100 years ago. And ticking time bomb, the effort by people in Sturgeon Lake to save their homes.
From KBJR-6, your weather authority, this is the KBJR-6 News at 10.
Good evening, I'm Bonnie Bowman.
And I'm Dan Wolf. Thanks for joining us. A lot of news to get to tonight, but we begin with weather. For some in the Northland tonight, could be the coldest of the season so far.
You're watching the KBJR-6 News at 10 with Bonnie Bowman, Dan Wolf, sports with Matt Halverson, and weather with Chief Meteorologist Adam Clark on KBJR-6, your weather authority.
University of Minnesota officials.
Right now at 5, Itasca County investigators are trying to figure out what caused a weekend fire at an old Bovey Middle School. Parts of the building collapsed. We'll have the latest.
Plus, new developments in the case involving a former Proctor football player who was sexually assaulted after practice. Why the school district is asking a judge to drop a suit filed by the teen's family.
And Ian has just been upgraded to hurricane status as parts of Florida brace for its punch. More on a possible evacuation.
From the KBJR-TV studios, you're watching Northern News Now today.
Well, we're taking a live look at Canal Park this morning right outside of our Northern News Now newsroom at 5 a.m. on this Monday, September 26th. Good morning and happy Monday. I'm Natalie Grant.
And I'm Paul Brown. Good to have you with us and welcome to Northern News Now. Our new branding, our new look, and of course, something that we'll have to get used to saying out loud here. Of course, we've been talking about it last week with you, but today is our first day.
Yes, it's officially here, Northern News Now. I feel like we've been talking about it forever here, but let's
look into the cause.
From the KBJR-TV studios, you're watching the news at noon on Northern News Now.
Good afternoon and thanks for joining us. I'm Paul Brown. As Hurricane Ian is expected to become a Category 4 storm,
leaders say drastic action is needed to save a precious natural resource.
From the KBJR-TV studios, you're watching the news at 5 on Northern News Now.
Good evening, I'm Briggs LaSavage.
And I'm Dan Wolf. Thanks for joining us. It's long closed by COVID.
From the KBJR-TV studios, you're watching the news at 10 on Northern News Now.
We are, of course, starting with our first alert because we do have a widespread freeze warning in effect across all of northeastern Minnesota.
Right now at 4, a state of emergency declared in Florida. By how much? Hurricane Ian is expected to intensify in the next 24 hours. Plus proposing a nearly 9% property tax increase. What that could mean for Duluth residents and how the mayor is defending the proposal. And dropping COVID travel restrictions. What you need to know when crossing the Canadian border.
From the KBJR-TV studios, you're watching the 4 o'clock news on Northern News Now.
Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us. I'm Kendall Jarbo. Welcome to the first ever Northern News Now at 4. We are so excited for this partnership between CBS 3 and KBJR 6, bringing local news coverage at times convenient for you.
From the KBJR-TV studios, you're watching the news at 6:30 on Northern News Now.
Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us. I'm Kendall Jarbo. Welcome to the first ever Northern News Now at 6:30.
Right now at 5, a first for a sitting president as Joe Biden speaks at the church where Martin Luther King Jr. was pastor. More on the historic visit and today's MLK Day events.
Plus, as shipping season comes to an end in the Twin Ports, the Port Authority is looking back on the highs and lows of this past year.
And the Bear Grease Sled Dog Marathon is just a couple of weeks away, but you don't have to wait to take in some of the images of this Northland tradition.
From the KBJR-TV studios, you're watching Northern News Now today.
We're taking a live look over the harbor this morning where shipping season has come to an end. We got some ice forming on the lake there, it seems. It is 5 a.m. on this Monday, January 16th. Good morning and happy Monday. I'm Natalie Grant.
And I'm Paul Brown. Thanks for joining us. Happy MLK Day. Hopefully some of you have a holiday out there and are taking the day off. Whatever you got going on, let's check out the weather here.
Why the company made that decision and what it means for jobs in the area.
From the KBJR-TV studios, you're watching the 4 o'clock news on Northern News Now.
Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us. I'm Kendall Jarbo. Right now at 4, hours after a major announcement today, Governor Tony Evers is now in Superior. The big issue he's hoping to get community feedback on. Plus, egg prices up 60%. The impact that's having on Duluth businesses. And it's calm right now, but Wisconsin could see lots of snow later this week. Meteorologist Hunter McCullough explains everything you need to know.
Yes, thank you very much, Kendall. We are under a first alert weather day starting today and lasting into Wednesday and Thursday. Now, the snow is going to be arriving Wednesday evening, lasting through Thursday. Up to 8 inches of snow will be possible over into northwest Wisconsin and maybe a little bit more along the south shore and heavy.
You're watching the Northern News Now news at 4 with Kendall Jarbo and weather with meteorologist Hunter McCullough on Northern News Now.
Welcome back to Northern News Now at 4. Here's a live look at the Duluth Harbor and Bayfront Park tonight. That's where a new event is happening tomorrow and Saturday called Friends of the Light.
The best in the country.
From the KBJR-TV studios, you're watching the news at 5 on Northern News Now.
Good evening, I'm Briggs LaSavage.
And I'm Dan Wolf. Thanks for joining us. A rainy, icy day in the Northland. It's not often you get to say that in the month of January. That's what we're dealing with here this evening.
Yeah, it sure is.
You're watching the Northern News Now news at 5 with Briggs LaSavage, Dan Wolf, and weather with Chief Meteorologist Adam Lorch on Northern News Now.
In tonight's Your World in 60, a horrible tragedy in California where 6 people were shot and killed in a home this morning. A third candidate jumps in.
From the KBJR-TV studios, you're watching the news at 6 on Northern News Now.
Good evening, I'm Dan Wolf. Thanks for joining us. It had been years since it rained here in the month of January, till today.
You're watching the Northern News Now news at 6 with Dan Wolf, sports with Kevin Moore, and weather with Chief Meteorologist Adam Lorch on Northern News Now.
Been about 2 years, you might remember, since a Minnesota police officer was shot in the head, nearly died when answering a call.
From the KBJR-TV studios, you're watching the news at 6:30 on Northern News Now.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Kendall Jarboe. Governor Walz today announced plans to send $4 billion worth of rebate checks to Minnesotans.
You're watching the Northern News Now news at 6:30 with Kendall Jarboe and weather with meteorologist Hunter McCullough on Northern News Now.
Farmers in St. Louis County are another step closer to getting help after their crops flooded.
From the KBJR-TV studios, you're watching the news at 10 on Northern News Now.
Good evening, I'm Dan Wolf. Thanks for joining us. A very rare January rain across the area today has now transitioned into a much more familiar type of January weather out there tonight. A live look at I-35 up kind of by the Proctor area. It's hard to see really well, but it is snowing at a decent clip out there right now. Fortunately, I-35 looking pretty clear.
You're watching the Northern News Now news at 10 with Dan Wolf, sports with Kevin Moore, and weather with Chief Meteorologist Adam Lorch on Northern News Now.
One of the deadliest single attacks.
Live from the KBJR-TV studios, this is Northern News Now.
And we're taking a live look out at the canal this morning. It is 6 a.m. It is Wednesday, July 3rd. Duluthians.
Live from the KBJR-TV studios, this is Northern News Now.
Good afternoon and thanks for joining us. I'm Sydney Whitty. Paul is on.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into Northern Life here with Ryan. I'm Briggs. Thank you for joining us as we are now just one day away from the 4th of July holiday celebrations. Oh, I can't.
From the KBJR-TV studios, Briggs LeSavage, Dan Wolf, and First Alert Weather with Chief Meteorologist Adam Lorch on Northern News Now.
Tonight for your world in 60, Hurricane Beryl is causing significant.
Live from the KBJR-TV studios, this is Northern News Now.
Good evening, I'm Rob Coles. Dan and Laura have the night off. Thanks for.
From the KBJR-TV studios, Laura Lee, Dan Wolf, First Alert Weather with Chief Meteorologist Adam Lorch, and sports with Alexis Beckett on Northern News Now.
For the sound of someone's laughter, for the light in someone's eyes, for the one who keeps on hoping, for the dream that never dies, for the special time together when a memory takes hold, for now and for the future, for the young and old. We're for the family, for families everywhere, our NorthLand family. There's so much to share, for you and for me, for all that we can be. TV6, we're for the family.
For the most reliable, accurate news, tune to KDLH-TV Duluth. Weeknights at 6 and 10 and weekends at 10 p.m.